All right. Hopefully that looks a little bit better. Sorry for these technical difficulties. You never know what's going to happen. For some reason, my phone wasn't acknowledging that it was sideways. So.
Okay, so let me just double check that we are good to go now.
Looks like we're good to go.
Thanks for your patience, guys.
Yeah, thank you for your patience. Sorry about that.
So let's kind of start over and pretty much say what we just said in the last video, since anyone who didn't get a chance to see that probably didn't hear that. But today what we're going to be covering is systems and processes. So we're going to share our Chatbot Agency System with you guys. If you have any questions, make sure to drop them in the comments. Even though yesterday on the live we didn't get a chance to answer all of your questions during the live, Kyle actually took the time this morning to go through and answer all of your questions. So we'll definitely get to them whether we respond on the comment or we answer it in the live today.
I want to try to move fast though today so that we can get to your guys' questions live and answer as many as we can. Again, today the stuff that we're talking about, I'm super excited about. We're talking about systems and processes. This is something that's really near and dear to my heart. About 6 years ago, a little over 6 years ago, I dropped out of college and I started pursuing my entrepreneurial dreams. I started out by working at a startup in the timeshare industry. And when I got there, they were high performing, generating a lot of revenue, but the owners wanted to sell the company eventually. And so in order to do this, they brought in an investor. The investor flipped the whole company on its back end and fired like half of the workforce. It was like the scariest day I've ever had working anywhere before. We had like 120 people, and within a day, we went right down to 60 people. And within the first few months after that investor laid everyone off, we were actually producing more revenue. So we were more efficient as a company with half of the amount of employees that we had previously to that investor coming in. And so what that investor did was he took the knowledge from this guy right here, William Edwards Deming. There's a book, Out of the Crisis by William Edwards Deming, and The New Economics. This is essentially where he teaches a lot of the systems and process stuff that we're going to be talking about today. And so he took that knowledge and implemented it at the timeshare startup, and like I said, was just able to become so much more efficient, and that startup did end up getting sold. And so me having seen that and having been a part of building those systems, building those processes, it really just made me super confident in how a system and processes can actually help a business become efficient, as well as set yourself up so that if you do want to sell down the line, it makes your company a lot more alluring to someone who's wanting to buy that, especially in the chatbot world, right? If you have a chatbot agency, we're getting to the point in time where in the next couple of years, I bet you we're going to start seeing people selling off their chatbot agencies. And the people who want to buy these types of marketing agencies want them to be built on a foundation of systems and processes. So I just kind of wanted to give you some background, like where I learned that. I learned that at the startup that I worked at, as well as from these two books right here. So if you're curious, I would start with The New Economics if I were you. This one is more of like a economic textbook, very hard to...
We'll drop the names in the comments as well for you guys.
Yeah, so this one's a lot more digestible, though, if you want to check that out, The New Economics. And yeah, we'll drop those down below in the comments after we get started here. But
alrighty, so if you're joining us live, drop a hashtag live in the comments. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. John said he's been through it before. Awesome.
Nice.
Okay, so we're going to get started. We're going to take you guys through our system. And remember, just like yesterday, anything that we share on the whiteboard will be sent to you afterwards in our bot and the email in a worksheet. Today's worksheet is going to be very actionable in the sense that you're going to pretty much recreate everything we're about to show you before yourself right after this session.
Yeah, and this is the first time we're actually giving away our entire Chatbot Agency System, like the actual diagram. You can pretty much copy and paste our whole system that we use at our agency for yourselves. In the past, we've kind of given some examples, which we're going to do today, but we've never actually given away our whole system outside of the course. So of course, inside of our program, we give away our system and everything else that we do in the agency to our students, but we've never given this away publicly. So definitely check for that after this live here and start curating your own system. So first off, the first element of a system is going to be called an aim. So an aim is similar to a goal, but it's different in the sense that a goal can be achieved, right? So let's say if you had a goal in an agency, it might look something like, I want to make $1 million in a year, right? Like that's a goal, you can achieve that. Well, an aim is a little bit different because it's important that every aspect of your system that we're going to talk about here in a second should be working towards that aim. The aim should be something that can constantly be improved upon, but also all of the different elements of your system should be working towards that aim. So that's why it's really important, because as we talk about the different subsystems, it's important to note that the aim of each one of those subsystems is the same. The entire organization is working towards the same thing. So for us at our chatbot agency, our aim is to deploy chatbots that drive ROI for businesses, right? This is something that we should constantly be striving for and constantly trying to improve upon, right? How much ROI can we drive for a business? How can each one of our subsystems be constantly improving so that we can drive more ROI for businesses? So that's what an aim is. So you should think about, what is the aim of your chatbot agency? That's the first thing. So second over here is going to be the inputs. And so the inputs lie on the outside of this system. And she's going to draw some boundaries here in just a second that kind of show you the outside of the system and the inside of the system. So first off, we've got chosen inputs. So the inputs are the things that you actually choose to bring into your system. So there's two different types of inputs. There's chosen and there's imposed. But first off, we've got chosen inputs. So like I said, these are things that you're choosing to bring into your system. And it's very important that anyone who's involved at any part of this entire system knows exactly what inputs you're choosing to bring into your system, right? Let's say that, we'll get into this in a second, but one of our subsystems, right, is going to be marketing. Well, a marketing person might not necessarily care about paying payroll, right? But it's very important for them to understand which softwares or which processes we choose to have into our system that makes payroll happen, so they understand the entire ecosystem, the entire system that's going to make it a more efficient business. So to give you some examples of our chosen inputs, for instance, Messenger, right? And again, we're going to give you our system at the end of this, which you'll have all of our chosen inputs. You'll be able to see exactly what inputs that we have in our system. But just to give you some quick examples here, just so you can continue to conceptualize it and understand, Messenger, right? Facebook Messenger, that's one of our biggest inputs. We are choosing to bring Facebook Messenger into our system and to do business on Messenger. So it's very important that everyone in the system understands that, as well as contractors, clients, the chatbot value video. These are all different inputs that we're choosing to have a part of our system. And so because of these chosen inputs, we also have imposed inputs. These are the inputs that you don't necessarily have control over. Because you're choosing to do business with Facebook Messenger and you're choosing to build bots on Facebook Messenger, one of the things that's imposed upon you, one of the inputs that's imposed upon your system is going to be Facebook's terms of service, right? So because you're choosing to do business on Messenger, you have to understand what role Facebook's terms of service plays inside of your system. And we'll get into this in a second, but these are all very important because they're tied to different processes underneath each one of the subsystems in the middle here. So I know that this might be a lot of terminology that I'm throwing at you and you might not understand it, but as you see this built out and as you get your hands on the example, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. We have processes within our system that prevent us from
Well, the outputs, rather.
No, so we have imposed inputs in our system that prevent us from disobeying Facebook's terms of service, right? So that's why it's very important that we understand exactly what role Facebook's terms of service plays inside of our organization so that we can set up processes that prevent us from disobeying the terms of service. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I think so. If that makes sense, guys, let us know in the comments down below. And if you just joined us, drop a hashtag live. And remember, this is going to be sent to you afterwards. So don't worry if you can't see everything. Plus, there's no way we could put everything on the whiteboard for sure.
Yeah, it's impossible to draw out an entire system here on the whiteboard, unfortunately. But so now we're going to move into the middle of the system. So again, to kind of reiterate, we just talked about the left side, the outside of the system. We've got chosen inputs. We've got imposed inputs. Hopefully you understand what those mean, how they're different now. And now we're going to be moving into the middle of the system. So these things that she's writing down right now are our subsystems. These are the subsystems of our overall system. And you can think of subsystems like departments in a traditional company, right? So let's say in a traditional company, you've got a marketing department, you've got a sales department, you've got HR, the executives. These are all different subsystems or different departments inside of a traditional company. Well, when you build an organization or a business on the foundation of systems, what you've got is subsystems. The main difference between subsystems and departments in a company would be that usually in a department, in a traditional company, the marketing team doesn't really know what the sales team's doing. The sales team doesn't really know or care about, what HR is doing or customer service, right? They don't really talk to each other and they don't really understand what's happening within each one of those departments. Well, when you build a business on the foundation of systems, anyone who is involved with the marketing subsystem or anyone who is involved with the sales subsystem understands exactly what's happening over here in the marketing subsystem, right? Because if they have a complete understanding of all of the different processes that a marketer in the marketing subsystem does, then they'll be able to do their job as a salesman a lot more efficiently. And so that's kind of one of the main concepts of building your business on the foundation of subsystems and processes, is that each one of these subsystems is working together. They all understand what's happening in each subsystem, and they all understand, more importantly, how their processes that they do on a day-to-day basis are working towards this aim, right? And so that's kind of where this all plays in. Is you can kind of look at this like a big machine, right? And I've heard that analogy used quite a bit when you're talking about systems, right? Is you're feeding the machine something. So over here, we're choosing to put in some inputs, right? We're choosing messenger, contractor, clients, chatbot, value, video. We're aware of the imposed inputs that we have to deal with, and we're feeding them into the machine. And as they go in here, each one of these different things is going to play a different role in the processes that are below each one of these subsystems. So Natasha now is going to write an example of what one of these processes underneath each one of these subsystems might look like. And so now I want you to start thinking, right? Which subsystems do you want to have inside of your chatbot agency, and what types of processes do you see underneath each one of those subsystems? And more importantly, where are the inputs on the left-hand side playing a role in each one of those processes? And I know I'm kind of going fast here and explaining a lot of information. Again, I wanted to do that so that we can have some time at the end to answer your questions. But it's very important that you understand that if you do this, two things are going to happen no matter what at your company. If you decide to build your agency on the foundation of systems and processes, you'll have the opportunity to sell your company eventually at the end of it. That's one of the main things that building your business on a foundation of systems and processes allows you to do. Is it allows you to be more alluring to a buyer when it comes to that point in time, so that they can come into your business, they can see exactly what you do and how you do it. They know what your aim is, they know the different subsystems that you have in your organization, they know the exact processes. Essentially, at the end of the day, they can take this overall system and replicate your business as long as they have access to it and all of the inputs.
Exactly. So real quickly, because we did have a question about what these say. So this is marketing, sales, admin, so administration, client work, and then client management. And we're going to go into right now an example for each of them to give you an idea.
Yeah, definitely. So if you want to kind of take over here for a second, just so I stop talking, and you can talk about the different examples that we have underneath each one of those subsystems.
Yeah, so for marketing, we have obviously a lot of processes under each of these subsystems. So for marketing, the example that we're going to give you here is creating marketing materials. So that could be your brochure, if you have one of those, a website for sure, a proposal, literally anything that you need for marketing purposes.